At Howmet Castings, an Alcoa business, the safety and well-being of all individuals is a prime consideration and priority. That includes contractor employees who perform a valuable service towards the success of our business. The intent of this presentation is to provide contractor employees with specific information and guidelines on elements of environmental, health, and safety, and to ensure that your contract work at Howmet is performed in a safe and environmentally responsible manner. We want to do all we can to make sure you are adequately informed about our environmental, health, and safety procedures and requirements in order for you to avoid any risk of injury associated with your work at our facilities. Welcome to Howmet Castings. Howmet is a value-based world leader in high-technology castings and related businesses. We are the premier manufacturer of precision castings for jet aircraft, industrial gas turbine engines, and other advanced technology industries. We are also a major supplier of raw materials and equipment to the investment casting industry, and we excel in finished goods processes that include contract management, hot isostatic pressing, machining, and thermal coating. At Howmet, we believe that advancing technologies such as ours can thrive while doing all we can to protect people and the environment. Our efforts are committed to employees' health and safety, as well as to this beautiful planet on which we all live. Although this video comprises scenes primarily from the Howmet Whitehall Castings facility, the video depicts typical scenes and standard environmental health and safety programs and policies representative of all Howmet operating locations. As mentioned earlier, Howmet Castings places high priority on achieving employee and contractor safety. This priority begins with our long-standing policy statement that encompasses our beliefs and principles about environmental, health, and safety. It is Alcoa's policy to operate worldwide in a safe, responsible manner, which respects the environment and the health of our employees, our customers, and the communities where we operate. We will not compromise environmental, health, or safety values for profit or production. The purpose of having a safety policy for contract work is to ensure that safety is a high priority for all contract companies that perform work at our facilities. To establish standard safety procedures and behaviors that are an expectation of doing work at Howmet. To set forth and establish the responsibility of contract companies and their employees to follow safe practices at all times. The essence of our contractor environmental health and safety policy is to require 100% compliance with environmental and safe work practices for all contract work. And finally, as it must be, establish that contractor companies who work at Howmet are responsible for the safety and well-being of their employees. As a contract employee, the following are your personal responsibilities for working in our facilities. You are responsible to follow safe work practices, to wear required PPE, to report unsafe conditions and practices, to report all incidents to your supervisor, which must then be reported to the Howmet representative, to maintain a clear and clean work area, to manage and dispose of hazardous materials and wastes properly. The following are some basic requirements of the contractor environmental, health, and safety policy. Comply with our site environmental, health, and safety rules at all times. Each contract company shall attend a pre-job safety conference with a Howmet representative responsible for coordinating the scope of the work to allow for the complete communication of job-specific environmental, health, and safety information. All contract employees must see this safety video prior to performing any work on site. This shall be documented as proof of your qualification and must be accomplished annually. Contractor companies shall continually inspect their work areas and correct deficiencies and comply with Howmet and OSHA requirements at all times. Safety training is the sole responsibility of contract companies. Examples include hazard communication, confined space entry, lockout-tagout verification, fall protection, mobile equipment, waste management, and others. Documentation of this training shall be made available upon request. In addition, documented safety meetings shall be conducted periodically with all contract employees. All incidents shall be promptly reported to the Howmet representative responsible for the work and investigated completely to determine root cause and corrective action. This investigation must be documented and submitted to the Howmet representative. Compliance with our drug and alcohol policy is vital for the protection of contractors as well as the employees of Howmet Castings. Contractors shall have a written drug and alcohol policy to include testing for cause. The sale, possession, transfer, or use of alcohol, illegal drugs, or controlled substances on Howmet property is prohibited. The presence of contractor employees under the influence of the same is prohibited. Entry onto the property constitutes consent to inspection. In addition, possession of firearms or other weapons on the property is also strictly prohibited. Another important rule is our tobacco use policy. Howmet Castings is considered a tobacco-free facility, except in authorized outside areas. These outside areas must be at a minimum 10 feet from any facility entrance. The use of tobacco products of any kind are not allowed inside any building and is strictly enforced. Concerning parking and entrance to the facilities, contractor employees may park only in authorized parking lots. Parking is not allowed on any roadways. Rather, make sure your vehicle is parked in a designated area in the lots adjacent to the plants. Do not park in reserved spots. Remember to follow all posted speed limit signs. It is our policy that you use your seatbelt while driving on the property of Howmet. Use extreme caution while driving, as the roadways are shared with tractor-trailer trucks, pedestrians, and lift trucks. Any vehicle on Howmet Castings property is subject to search at any time, provided there is just cause. As a contract employee, you are required to sign in and wear a Howmet-issued contractor badge. The list and badge are available at authorized secured entry points. When you leave the property, even temporarily, you must sign out and turn in your contractor badge. If entry to the plant is required other than during normal working hours, special arrangements must be made in advance through your Howmet representative. Environmental requirements are extremely important to Howmet Castings. Do not bring any chemical onto the facility without prior approval. To obtain approval, the material safety data sheet must be submitted to your Howmet representative. If at any time you see or observe a chemical spill of any type or size, immediately notify your Howmet representative. This includes any unpermitted releases to any sewer system. Be sure to safely store and handle chemical materials to prevent any and all potential environmental releases. All chemical waste generated by a contractor is the sole responsibility of the contractor. Do not leave unused chemicals at our facility. If you have any questions pertaining to waste disposal, contact your Howmet representative. Also, good housekeeping practices are an expectation of performing work at our facilities. We believe it is an integral part of environmental, health, and safety, and require that housekeeping practices not just be good, they must be excellent. Finally, as guardians of the environment, find ways to recycle materials and conserve both resources and utilities. Prior to starting any contracted work, on each and every project, a pre-job safety conference will be held with appropriate representatives. This conference will be facilitated by the Howmet representative responsible for the scope of the work to be performed and attended by the job site contractor supervisor, contractor employees, and all subcontractors. This information must be communicated to all contracted employees and is the responsibility of the contractor. At this very important conference, the Howmet representative will cover all general environmental, health, and safety information, applicable emergency procedures, the required personal protective equipment, and complete all applicable permits that are required for the work. In addition, this session will cover any other specific environmental, health, and safety requirements for the work and the work area where the project is to be performed. The proper use of personal protective equipment is essential to the safety and welfare of all employees and contractors working at Howmet. The proper selection and use of personal protective equipment is essential in providing a safe and healthful workplace free of recognized hazards. The underlying principle for consistent, mandatory use of personal protective equipment, called PPE, is to ensure workers are protected from hazards that in many cases are difficult to control and anticipate. In all cases, the proper selection and use of PPE is essential to your safety on the job. At Howmet Castings, we believe that consistent, mandatory use of personal protective equipment protects workers from injury. As a result, our policy is very strict and is enforced to assure compliance. PPE consists of equipment and clothing that protects an individual from injury such as eye, face, hearing, head, hand, foot, body, and respiratory protection. The PPE required depends on the hazard anticipated or the area and process of the Howmet facilities. At a minimum, all contract workers are required to wear side shield protected safety glasses, appropriate safety footwear with metatarsal protectors, and hearing protection at all times in all Howmet facilities. In addition, there are areas of our facility that require specific protective clothing or even respirators. The Howmet representative responsible for coordinating the scope of the work will provide personal protective equipment specifics that must be followed at all times. Contractors are required to provide all personal protective equipment, which shall be in accordance to both OSHA and Howmet requirements. Safety glasses must have side shields and must be ANSI Z87 approved. Slide-on temporary side shields are not allowed. Hard hats must be of the type A or B where required. Metal hard hats or bump caps are prohibited. The wearing of sleeveless shirts, tank tops, shorts, or being stripped to the waist is prohibited. Also, neckties, unrestricted long hair, loose necklaces, bracelets, or other jewelry are not permitted in work areas where entanglement may present a hazard. The complete isolation and lockout of all energy sources where potential exposure to hazardous energy exists is a strict requirement of the Howmet lockout-tagout verification policy. Tagout alone is not permitted at Howmet. This policy requires that appropriate lockout procedures be followed when performing any work or service by utilizing locks, hasps, and tags on energy isolating devices whenever maintaining, servicing, or within the danger zone of equipment or machines. This policy requires that before performing work on or in equipment that all energy sources be properly dissipated, isolated, and secured with a lockout device to ensure that equipment cannot be operated or inadvertently activated unless all personal locks, hasps, and tags are removed and all personnel are clear of danger. This lockout policy is required for all areas and operations of Howmet and requires 100% compliance. Lockout-tagout verification specifics and coordination will be discussed at the pre-job conference. Should any questions arise pertaining to energy isolation and lockout procedures, be sure to promptly contact the Howmet representative. Lockout works this way. The system energy sources are brought to a zero energy state by Howmet personnel. The system is locked out with contractor locks and tags. The supervisor then places the keys into a lockbox and locks it with his or her personal lock. Each contractor employee then places their personal lock on the lockbox, securing the lock keys. This requires one lock per person. The key to your personal lock or locks is kept on your person during the operation. Never give anyone your key or have anyone remove your lock for you. At the end of the shift, each personal lock must be removed when the worker leaves the work site. Energization of systems will be completed only by Howmet personnel. For contractors, personal lock, hasp, and tag requirements are standardized in color, type, shape, and size. Keyed separately, meaning only one key will open the lock, which is only under the control of the employee whose name is on the lock or tag. Always keep the key to your lock on your person, such as in your pocket. Tags must identify the employee and company. Also, the date and time must be filled in each day. Another important safety procedure is the safe entry into a confined space. Our specific confined space entry procedures are required to be followed to the letter due to the potential for serious injury or death. Confined spaces are defined as any space with limited means of entry or exit and large enough to bodily enter and not designated for continuous human occupancy. These include, but are not limited to, chemical storage tanks, reactors, sewers, or pits. Confined space hazards include physical, chemical, or engulfment hazards. In order to eliminate all hazards, procedures and methods are required for the isolation of all energy sources. The space is prepared for entry from the outside. Atmospheric testing is conducted to ensure safe conditions for entry, and an outside observer is designated for continuous observation of entry personnel. In addition, it is required that all personnel are properly trained and preparations are made in advance for emergency extraction. As with lockout-tagout verification procedures, confined space entry requires a 100% compliance. This is an example of a Howmet confined space entry permit, which is used for entry into any confined space such as a pit, vault, manhole, or a tank. A permit must be completed and posted at the entrance to the confined space by the contractor's supervisor prior to entry into the space. Our confined space entry rules requires a number of stipulations including air quality measurements, energy isolation and verification as required, mechanical egress equipment, communication devices, continuous ventilation, and a standby person to continuously observe the entrance during the operation to control the safety activities inside and outside of the space. The standby person is the designated person to summon the entry supervisor in case of an emergency and shall not leave the entry point or area while employees are inside the space. In addition, it is a requirement of Howmet that a fully charged, self-contained breathing apparatus is immediately available for rescue services. All confined space entry procedures must be reviewed with the Howmet representative during the pre-job conference. The following are contractor responsibilities for entry into a confined space at Howmet Castings. To obtain all information concerning hazards, determine precautions, procedures, equipment, and personal protective equipment. Coordinate entry operations with Howmet representative and utilize the appropriate entry permit. Ensure proper entry equipment is at the site. Ensure all sources of energy are isolated, locked and tagged out as required, and all entry personnel use personal locks. Ensure operations are consistent with the established confined space entry procedures. Notify Howmet representatives upon termination of confined space entry operations. If a respirator is required to be worn during the performance of contract work, you must be properly trained in the type and make of the particular respirator utilized. Medically approved to wear the respirator. Fit tested in the particular respirator to assure a proper face-to-face piece seal. Training, medical approval, fit testing, and issuing of the respirator is the responsibility of the contractor. A Howmet representative may at any time ask to see proper documentation of these requirements. Respirators are required for some jobs or areas of the plant to prevent exposure to dusts, mists, or vapors that may be present. Respirator requirements will be determined at the pre-job conference. The correct type of respirator shall be selected based on the hazard of exposure. They shall be cleaned, stored properly, and never worn when conditions prevent a proper face-to-face piece seal, such as facial hair or any other materials that project under the sealing surface. Plant compressed air systems must not be used for breathing air, as it does not meet the breathing air quality requirements of OSHA. Detailed hot work procedures are required for all operating areas, which requires permission in the form of a written permit prior to any welding, cutting, creation of sparks, or the use of an open flame. Permits are issued by the Howmet representative and only after specific criteria are met. This criteria includes elimination of all combustible materials in the hot work area, isolation of all potentially hazardous operations, fire protection equipment availability, fire watch provisions, and other applicable safety precautions. Hot work permits are issued to specific hot work operations in specific areas. The prevention of fire is an important life safety and asset protection function at any manufacturing facility. For that reason, the Howmet hot work permit must be followed to the letter. The written hot work permit is required for any welding of any type, no matter how short in duration, the use of a burning or heating torch, heavy grinding that spreads sparks in the area, any use of an open flame in the plant for any purpose. The area must be free of combustible material and watered down if necessary. In addition, the contractor must supply a fire extinguishers and a fire watch person. The hot work permit procedure works like this. Prepare the work area by removing all combustible material within 35 feet of the hot work. If that is not possible, all combustible material shall be protected from fire with fireproof covering material. The work area is to be completely watered down if necessary. A fire watch person shall be assigned whose duties are to continually watch for fire or other hazards during the operation. If hot material or sparks may fall to a level or multiple levels below, a fire watch must be assigned for each level. The best practice is always to prevent hot material and sparks from falling below. Be sure to have a properly rated contractor-supplied fire extinguisher in the area, ready and accessible for use. The hot work permit must be posted in the area of the work. Finally, be sure that the fire watch person knows how to use a fire extinguisher, knows how to sound the alarm, and continue on watch for at least 30 minutes after the hot work is completed. Upon completion of all tasks, the hot work permit must be turned back into your Howmet representative. As a contractor employee, you have the right to know and understand the hazards of chemicals that you may be potentially exposed to while working at Howmet. For that reason, Howmet Castings has made any and all facility MSDSs available to you 24 hours a day. If you have a question or want to see information pertaining to a chemical used at the plant, contact your Howmet representative. Notebooks such as these are continually updated and located in various areas of the plant. Exposure to chemical hazards must be prevented at all times while working at Howmet. Chemical hazards could include exposure to airborne dusts, mists, vapors, or gases, or exposure to the skin or eyes to potentially corrosive materials. In order to prevent harm, always be aware of these hazards and protect yourself with personal protective equipment, and stay clear of areas where a chemical hazard may exist, such as chemical unloading operations. If corrosive chemical contact occurs to your eyes or skin, speed is essential. Copious quantities of water must be used to flush away the chemical and cool sensitive tissues that are in contact with the chemical. For eye exposure, wash the eyes with flowing water at the nearest eye wash, holding the eyes open for a minimum of 15 minutes, and seek medical attention. For skin exposure, wash the skin with flowing water in a safety shower while removing shoes and clothing. If goggles are worn, do not remove them until the chemical is washed away from the hair, face, and hands. Again, seek medical attention. Be sure to report to the Howmet representative upon the first indication of a rash or burn if chemical exposure is suspected. Due to personal hygiene concerns and to prevent possible contamination, eating or drinking shall be limited to authorized areas of the plants. We do not permit eating in the production areas, and all containers must have covers, such as a sipper cup. Before eating or drinking in an authorized area, always be sure you wash your hands and face. Another health issue in the workplace is the prevention of exposure to blood and other body fluids that could result in the transmission of blood-borne pathogens. Howmet has implemented an infection control program to protect employees and contractors. If any contractor is injured, which results in potential exposure to blood-borne pathogens, the Howmet representative must be notified as soon as possible. Howmet personnel, specially trained in medical procedures, will be summoned to the scene to administer first aid and clean up any contaminated materials or areas. An important point is to not unnecessarily spread the contamination. A very important issue for contractor work is the proper barricading of your work area where potential hazards exist to other contractors or Howmet personnel. The barricade policy is very simple and must be followed. Yellow caution barricade tape is to be used for those conditions where a warning is necessary to alert all personnel before entering an area. This is intended as a caution, meaning no imminent dangerous condition exists. To enter a yellow caution barricade taped off area, stop before entering and observe the area for the hazard or ask for information pertaining to the hazard. Red danger tape is to be used to prohibit the entrance to the area by anyone other than those performing the operation due to dangerous conditions such as chemicals, overhead work, welding, cutting, or other such operations. Never enter an area barricaded with red danger tape for any reason. Be sure to barricade areas with the right colored tape and entirely surround the job. For temporary openings in floors or walls, roof areas, or otherwise dangerous fall hazard conditions, the area must be barricaded with substantial standard railings meeting compliance with OSHA standards for floor and wall openings. Never enter an area that is barricaded in this manner for any reason unless you are working in the area and protected with fall protection equipment. Barricades that are placed in roadways or walkways must be visible both day and night. The use of mobile equipment on Howmet property presents important safety issues that must be addressed by all contractor employees while operating or working near such vehicles. These types of mobile equipment may include powered industrial trucks or forklifts, narrow aisle trucks, aerial scissor lifts, boom lifts, or any other industrial mobile equipment used to transport personnel, equipment, or to perform work. All OSHA guidelines and rules must be followed while operating these vehicles. Operators must keep their equipment under control at all times and obey all traffic sign signals and audible or visual warning devices. Contractors must maintain their equipment in a safe and leak-free condition. In most cases, the plant vehicle speed is 6 miles per hour. However, confirm the proper plant speed with your Howmet representative and do not exceed this speed for any reason. It is for your safety as well as for pedestrians within the facility. Each operator must be fully trained and qualified for the type of equipment being operated. This also means that the operator must carry their mobile equipment operator permit at all times while operating a vehicle at Howmet. Always perform a pre-shift equipment inspection prior to the start of work for the respective mobile equipment being used. If any deficiencies are found, they must be resolved before using the equipment. Use the equipment for its intended use and never exceed the rated maximum load capacity at any time. If there is an incident, including any near miss. It must be immediately reported to the Howmet representative and formally investigated by the contractor supervisor. A formal report to the incident must be completed and provided to the Howmet representative. OSHA and Howmet emphasize the requirement to protect workers from a fall from elevation or into dangerous equipment. This policy is quite simple to understand. Whenever performance of any task would allow a worker to fall a distance of 6 feet or more, or any distance where the likelihood of a serious or fatal injury exists, the hazards of falling must be identified, evaluated, and controlled. In order to control fall hazards, the first alternative is to eliminate the hazard through guarding or approved lifting equipment. If that cannot be done, fall arrest equipment must be utilized. Fall arrest equipment consists of body support in the form of an approved full-body harness. The connecting equipment shall consist of a shock-absorbing lanyard or self-retracting lifeline and approved D-ring connectors and locking snap hooks. This must be attached to approved anchorage points. Approved anchorage means an anchor point properly attached that will sustain a static load of no less than 5,000 pounds. This must be reviewed with the Howmet representative during the pre-job conference. Electrical safety in any manufacturing operation, including Howmet, is extremely important. Safety-related work practices must be employed to prevent electrical shock or other injuries resulting from either direct or indirect electrical contacts when work is performed near or on equipment or circuits which are or may be energized. Only qualified electricians shall work on electrical equipment or be potentially exposed to live parts. Specific safety-related work practices must be consistent with the nature and extent of the associated electrical hazards. In addition to OSHA requirements, all electrical work shall be performed in compliance with the National Electric Code. For portable electrical equipment, all power cords shall be grounded with a 3-prong type plug, including extension cords. Ground fault circuit interrupters, GFCIs, shall be utilized for all electrical equipment connections used by contractors as well as at contractor trailers. All portable electrical equipment shall be inspected prior to use to assure proper grounding. Extension cords shall not be run across aisles, doorways, stairs, wall openings, or through liquids, and will not be damaged or have any evidence of repair damage. Being prepared for an emergency can mean the difference between a non-serious injury and one that could threaten one's life. Any individual who discovers a possible emergency situation, medical, fire, rescue, or chemical release, must contact the Howmet representative immediately. Immediate notification is essential for an emergency situation in order to provide medical assistance to someone in need and also to warn other Howmet or contractor employees in the area. However, if an area is unsafe, notification should be made after evacuation to a safe location. For outside emergency response, central communication should be called for medical, fire, or police. Your Howmet representative can provide you with the specific emergency number for that location. Be sure to know this emergency number before starting any task at the facility in which you are working. We use several types of internal notifications for emergency situations. For plant evacuation, a plant-wide alarm system is used as a signal for evacuation. If and when the alarm signal is heard, you are to stop what you are doing, shut down all equipment, and proceed to the outside assembly area. Be sure to stay at the assembly area until the all clear is announced. Prior to beginning work, all contractors should refer to the site emergency plan for the area where they are working. This should also be covered by the Howmet representative during the pre-job meeting. This is what an evacuation to an assembly area would be like. Note the sound of the horn system and the emergency flashing lights. Also, notice how the employees proceed in an orderly fashion to the assembly area and gather near the sign to await further instructions or for the all clear to be given. At Howmet Castings, we are committed to a safe workplace. This will be accomplished through the collective efforts of all employees and our contractors. Safety at Howmet Castings is a #1 priority. We at Howmet want each and every employee, including contractor employees, to go home each day as they came to work, a whole person without injury. We take safety very seriously and have set high expectations that all environmental, health, and safety rules and procedures are followed to the letter. Plan safety into everything you do and always do the right thing. When you have a choice between safety and productivity, we ask that you choose safety. Learn the hazards of your surroundings and take the necessary precautions. Always wear the proper personal protective equipment, and most of all, watch out for each other and ask questions if something looks wrong. When in doubt, ask. You are important to the success of Howmet Castings. Your safety is important to Howmet. Have a safe and successful project at our facilities. Think safety. Act safely. Be safe.